everyone, welcome back to the channel. Chipmunk here. After too long a wait, it is time for the next installment in my list of the best sellers in America from every year. We are currently up to, where are we at? Well, we started in 1895. This is the oldest list I could find. I thought it was a Publisher's Weekly list, and I think it's like the Bookman, but maybe they're the same thing. Anyway, it's the oldest list I could find. So, from 1895, now we are up to 1911. Time flies. Anyway, I'm not going to keep you waiting for too long. The bestseller of 1911 in America was The Broad Highway by Geoffrey Farnall. This guy. The Broad Highway by Geoffrey Farnall was published by Little Brown and Company in February 1911, with 10 more reprintings through to July, which presumably is when this edition is from. It's 518 pages in total, and there are no illustrations in this edition, more's the pity. The dedication is to Shirley Byron Jevons, the friend of my boyish ambitions. This work is dedicated as a work of my gratitude, affection, and esteem. J.F. The copy I got on eBay has no items of note left behind in its pages from previous owners, except the name of one scribbled on the title page, and I do hope Rudolph Squiggle enjoyed this as much as I did. As usual, first we have a little bit about the author. Geoffrey Farnall was born February 10, 1878 in Birmingham, England, one of 4 children. There was no formal education in the house, but reading aloud was a thing, and his mother encouraged his writing. He enjoyed this and boxing. When grown, he first was employed by a metalworking company, but lost his job and then enrolled at the Westminster School of Art. He also spent time cycling through the countryside, encountering many different people who inspired characters in his novels. In 1900, he married, and he and his wife moved to New Jersey, where he found work as a scenery artist in the theater, which gave him plenty of time to pursue his writing. The Broad Highway was continually turned down by American publishers, so his wife sent it to one in England in 1910, where it found so much success that those in the U.S. suddenly found space for it the following year. With this, his family moved back to England, where they were able to purchase a home big enough for Farnall to have his own writing space, where he worked from midnight until breakfast. Later in life, he worked as a journalist during World War I, and then divorced his wife in 1938. Remarrying, he and his first wife had a daughter, but so did his second wife when he married her. Coincidentally, her daughter was named, I don't actually know how to pronounce this, I'm going to say Charmian, which was the first name of the main female character in this novel. This daughter inspired a sequel/spinoff in 1932, according to the interwebs, but this was before he divorced. I'm a little confused here. This might be a breath of scandal. Anyway, the sequel/spinoff was named Charmian Lady Vibart. Farnall lived until 1952 when he passed due to cancer. During his lifetime, he wrote 40 novels, numerous short stories, and also nonfiction. Norman Mailer and Barbara Cartland are among the writers who have been influenced by his works, and even to this day there is a Farnall Appreciation Society celebrating his novels. For someone largely forgotten today, he really kind of isn't, which is an interesting phenomenon. Now, if you're looking for this book online, there is a link below that I'll put down in the description that has a really nice copy, but also you can find it on like eBay, which is what I did. And Project Gutenberg actually has the novel up there where you can get it for free. To date, that I can find, there have been no recorded adaptations of this book for either stage or screen. This might be due in part to the rambling nature of the first part of the novel, which would seem to make it unsuitable for adaptation, but it would hardly be impossible. Now, as to the book itself. The book begins with a preamble, with presumably the author having a meetup in the countryside with a random peddler. The peddler asserts that his kind is never put into novels, and so the author decides to write a novel with a peddler character, and the peddler also gives him advice on the type of novel he should write. Now, this is kind of interesting because the following story does have a peddler character, but he's not really in it much. The book is split into two parts. The first one focusing on the protagonist's journey that gets him settled into a new life, and the second part being on the love affair that cements that new life. The time of the setting is not made clear. It seems to be somewhere in the 1800s. And the place is in England, I believe in the West Countryside, but I could be wrong. Our hero, Peter Vibart, goes largely unnamed through the first chunk of the story, and we also don't know much about his looks until we get a decent ways in. And since it's the sort of thing where he's narrating it, I find this realistic because if he was sitting down and telling you his life story, he would presume you would already know his name more than likely, and also he's right there in front of you, so why would he describe his looks? Anyway, we find out in due time that Peter has an identical cousin. Kids, ask your grandparents why I'm singing that. Heck, I wouldn't even know about that if it wasn't for my own parents. Which, knowing about this cousin, is a fact fairly new even to Peter himself. Now, he and this cousin are left an inheritance, but it's not to both of them. It's only to the one of them who will win and wed a certain society woman within the course of a year. Having no interest in either the woman or the money, Peter decides to chuck it all and wander the road throughout the country on a journey of self-discovery. He happens upon many an interesting character, many of whom pop up much later in the novel when you have forgotten all about them. Eventually, he settles in a small village and apprentices to the local blacksmith, and takes an abandoned cottage for himself to live in. One night, a dark and stormy night, a strange woman blasts into the cottage, pursued by a strange man intent on taking her virtue. Peter helps to fend the man off. It soon transpires that that man is also Peter's cousin, and things move on from there. It is an interesting type of novel. At first I thought it was going to be what I call an Alice in Wonderland type story. The man wanders through the countryside, meeting new people. Each chapter is kind of a standalone encounter. But then he settles into the village, and then the love story, championed by the peddler in the preamble, comes into play, and things kind of shift focus. So the plot shifts, well, not shifting in a way that this is a very strange comparison, but it kind of reminds me of Psycho. But there's really no other comparison to that property, other than there being some definite suspense toward the end that kept me reading. And there was a plot, not twist, but development there that I was not expecting. I will say that all comes well in the end, and that's to be expected from a novel of this era. But there is enough trial and tribulation that straddles the line of just enough and not too much. It's right there, it's perfect. The entire novel is a story which is not realistic. It's definitely a novel, but beneath the flowery language, it shows real human emotions as well. I was rooting for the couple at the heart of it all, and was definitely sticking with it to make sure they made it through. As a secondary love story, there's also the local blacksmith himself and the lady who he loves, but he's a bit of an idiot, although very sweet. So their story kind of mirrors the main love story. I was rooting for them too. Another great character I need to make mention of is the local elderly fellow, known as the Ancient. He's the sort who is a gossip and a tall tale teller, but he's so sweet and kindly that you just love him. There's a lot to like here. Probably partly due to the flowery language, this novel has not stood the test of time, which is the sad fate of a lot of books on this list so far. There's much written in the dialect of the country folks, which made it come across very clear in my head. There are also so many M dashes that, like, if you wrote this nowadays, people might go, oh, it's AI, although it is clearly not AI. This was definitely a real person, even if you didn't know it was written in 1911. Happily, unlike many novels on this list so far, there really isn't racism. Peter does smoke a pipe, and the bowl is carved in the shape of the head of a black man. Peter really has no comment on this other than the fact that that's what it is. It is called by a word that is not in wide use nowadays, and I will not use it, particularly being a white person. But it's not rude. It's not that word. There is one other point, and this is something that I'm sure happened in real life to somebody somewhere. Peter goes to a country fair, and one of the people he meets there is a man who works at a coconut shy. For Americans, a coconut shy, I believe, is one of those target games where you throw things, only I'm guessing you're throwing coconuts instead of balls, or maybe you used to throw coconuts and now you throw balls and they just call it that. Anyway, that's what it is. So this man works as a target, pokes his head through the screen and, yells at people to throw things at him. However, what he does is he puts on blackface and a wig, and the whole game is called something incredibly rude and awful. And I am quite certain that this sort of idiocy is based in reality. There are no black characters, which given the time and place is not unrealistic. Even as a teenager in the 1990s, I grew up in a small town in upstate New York, and we had one family of Asian descent and one half black family that I knew of. So there's not really an issue that I can see on that point. There was one other part of the novel that struck me as odd. Also at the fair, Peter's talking with another fellow at the fair, a sort of country gentleman. They're next to a medicine show where they're peddling a fraudulent cure-all. The gentleman is dead set against the shysters. But Peter argues that it's okay because even if people buy a placebo, then they may get cured anyway. That curing disease really all depends on a person's attitude. Now, the placebo effect is a thing, but this sounded a lot like Christian Science, which, as far as I know, is the attitude that you can get better through prayer and a positive attitude. Now, whether you believe that sort of thing or not, and I don't know if the author did, but it just came across that way. It came across as proselytizing, and it made me feel a little squidgy. Like I say, just a little squidginess. The rest of the novel seemed fine on points like that. There are also the ideals expounded on rural folk being just as good, if not better, than city folk due to their simple ideals and simple natures. That's a whole other argument, not uncommon at the time. Not necessarily a bad argument, it's just an argument that has more shades of gray to it than are really presented in this novel. Other than these points, I just love this book. The narrative is engrossing, the descriptions are evocative, the depictions are so endearing. If this book is anything to go by, Farnell was just a darn good author overall. I do recommend you find this one and go read it. I will now do my usual read-through of a few passages that struck me, and I hope you enjoy them. There is quite a bit of good dialogue in here, a lot of back and forth and people chiming in. I want you to forgive my pronunciation. I'm just going to do my best to read it how it's read. "You must be a danged fool, Tom, my lad," retorted he whom they called Joel, redder in the face than ever. "I thought you must," chorused the others. "Really ask what and where?" "Only asked, did ye?" repeated Joel scornfully. "Ah," nodded the other, "that's all." "But you're always a-axin', you are," said Joel gloomily. "Which I notice," retorted the man Tom, blowing into his tankard, "which I notice as you ain't never over fond of answerin'." "Oh, I ain't I?" "No, you ain't," repeated Tom. "No, how?" Here the red-faced man grew so very red indeed that the others fell to coughing all together, and shuffling their feet, and giving divers other evidences of their embarrassment, all save the unimpressionable Tom. Here we have another bit of excellent back-and-forth dialogue where they're all trying to casually, ever so casually, convince George the blacksmith to tell Prue, his love, what he really thinks. "She'll make some man a fine wife some day," exclaimed the ancient, blowing out a cloud of smoke. "I shall make some man as fine a wife as ever was some day." "You speak my very thought, ancient," said I. "She will indeed. What do you think, George?" But George's answer was to choke suddenly, and thereafter to fall a-coughing. "Smoke go wrong way, George?" inquired the ancient, fixing him with his bright eye. "Aye," nodded George. "Ah," said the old man, and we smoked for a time in silence. "So handsome as a picture she be," said the ancient suddenly. "She is fairer than any picture," said I impulsively. And what is better still, her nature is as sweet and beautiful as her face. How do we know that? Said George, turning sharply upon me. My eyes and ears tell me so, as yours surely must have done long ago, I answered. You do think she be a pretty lass, then, Peter? Inquired the ancient. I think, said I, that she is the prettiest lass I ever saw. Don't you think so, George? But again George's only answer was to choke. Smoke again, George? Inquired the ancient. Aye, said George, as before. 'Tis a fine thing to be young, said the ancient, after a somewhat lengthy pause and with a wave of his long pipe stem. A very fine thing. It is, said I, though we generally realize it all too late. As for George, he went on smoking. When you are young, pursued the ancient, you eats well and enjoys it if you sleeps well and enjoys it. Your legs is strong, your arms is strong, and you bain't afraid of nothing nor nobody. Oh, life's a very fine thing when you're young, but you's terrible quick a-going. And the years roll slow at first, but it's quicker and quicker, till one day you wakes to find you'm an old man. And when you'm old, the way gets very hard and toilsome and lonely. But there is always memory, said I. You're right there, Peter, so there be. I be an old man with more years and hairs in my head, and yet it seems but yesterday as I were holding on to my mother's skirt and thinking how the moon got lighted. Life be very short, Peter, and while we have it, it's well to get all the happiness out of it we can. Wisest men of all ages preach the same, said I, only they disagreed as to how happiness was to be gained. More fools they, said the ancient. Eh? I exclaimed, sitting up. More fools they, repeated the old man with a solemn nod. Why then, do you know how true happiness may be found? To be sure I do, Peter. How? By marriage, Peter, and hard work, and they always goes together. Marriage, said I. Marriage as ever was, Peter. There I don't agree with you, said I. That, retorted the ancient, stabbing at me with his pipe stem, that's because you never was married, Peter. There's the occasional just amazing description. Here's a bit of one. What brain could conceive, what pen describe the elemental chorus, like the mighty voice of persecuted humanity, past and present, crying the woes and ills, the sorrows and torments endured of all the ages? Tonight, surely, the souls of the unnumbered dead rode within the storm, and this was the voice of their lamentation. From the red mire of battlefields are they come, from the flame and ravishment of fair cities, from dim and reeking dungeons, from the rack, the stake, and the gibbet, to pierce the heavens once more with the voice of their agony. Since the world was made, how many have lived and suffered and died, unlettered and unsung, snatched by a tyrant's whim from life to death, in the glory of the sun, in the gloom of night, in blood and flame and torment. Indeed, their name is Legion. But there is a great and awful book whose leaves are countless, yet every leaf of which is smirched with blood and fouled with nameless sins, a record, howsoever brief and inadequate, of human suffering, wherein, as through a glass darkly, we may behold horrors unimagined, where murder stalks and rampant lust, where treachery creeps with curving back, smiling mouth, and sudden deadly hand, where tyranny, fierce-eyed and iron-lipped, grinds the nations beneath the bloody heel. Truly, man hath no enemy like man. And Christ is there, and Socrates, and Savonarola, and there too is a cross of agony, a bowl of hemlock, and a consuming fire. Which is a lot of description for one thunderstorm. The dialogue continues. He has met his match in this woman, and it's just wonderful. If you don't mind, I'll skip the accents for this one since they're not so pronounced. Well, said she. Well, said I, supposing you begin. But is she likely to interest you? I think so, yes. Aren't you sure then? Quite sure, certainly. Then why don't you say so? I thought you would take that for granted. A woman should take nothing for granted, sir. Then, said I, supposing you begin. I've half a mind not to, she retorted, curling the tress of hair again, and then, suddenly, what do you think of Charmian Brown? I think of her as little as I can. Indeed, sir. Indeed, said I. And why, pray? Because, said I, knocking the ashes from my pipe, because the more I think about her, the more incomprehensible she becomes. Have you known many women? Very few, I confessed. But, I am not altogether unfamiliar with the sex, for I have known a great number, in books. Our blacksmith, said Charmian, addressing the moon again, has known many women, in books. His knowledge is therefore profound. And she laughed. May I ask why you laugh at me? Oh, said she, don't you know that women in books and women out of books are no more the same than day and night, or summer and winter? And yet there are thousands of women who exist for us in books only. Laura, Beatrice, Trojan Helen, Aspasia, the glorious Verne, and hosts of others, I demurred. Yes, but they exist for us only as their historians permit them, as their biographers saw or imagined them. Would Petrarch ever have permitted Laura to do an ungracious act, or anything which, to his masculine understanding, seemed unfeminine? And would Dante have mentioned it had Beatrice been guilty of one? A man can no more understand a woman from the reading of books than he can learn Latin or Greek from staring at the sky. Of that, said I, shaking my head, of that I am not so sure. Then, personally, you know very little concerning women, she inquired. I have always been too busy, said I. Here Charmian turned to look at me again. Too busy, she repeated, as though she had not heard aright. Too busy. Much too busy. Now, when I said this, she laughed, and then she frowned, and then she laughed again. You would rather make a horseshoe than talk with a woman, perhaps? Yes, I think I would. Oh, said Charmian, frowning again, but this time she did not look at me. You see, I explained, turning my empty pipe over and over rather aimlessly, when I make a horseshoe, I take a piece of iron, and having heated it, I bend and shape it, and with every hammer stroke I see it growing into what I would have it. I am sure of it from start to finish. Now, with a woman, it is different. You mean that you cannot bend and shape her like your horseshoe? Still without looking towards me. I mean that I fear I should never be quite sure of a woman as I am of my horseshoe. I just happen to like this one bit of description when he meets up with the peddler in the narrative. At this point, Peter and the blacksmith have come at odds, which Peter would rather not, but there's a misunderstanding, unfortunately, and the blacksmith George is out for Peter's blood, and the peddler is relishing this a bit too much. Why, there'll be bloodshed. Blood! Quarts on it! Buckets on it! Black George'll batter this here cove's head soft, so sure as I were baptized. He'll lift this cove up in his great strong arms, and he'll throw this cove down, and he'll gore him, and stamp him down under his feet, and this cove's blood'll go soaking and soaking into the grass, somewheres beneath some edge, or in some quiet corner of the woods, and the birds'll perch on this cove's breast, and flutter their wings in this cove's face, 'cause they'll know as this cove can never do nobody no hurt no more. Ah, there'll be blood. Gallons of it. Just another little bit of dialogue that caught my fancy. The ancient is speaking with his son Simon. Lord, said Simon, what did she go and marry another chap for? Simon, returned the ancient, don't go asking foolish questions. Howsoever she did, and poor Nicodemus growed more imaginative than ever. After that, he took to turnips. Turnips? Exclaimed Simon, staring. Turnips as ever was, nodded the ancient. Used to stand for hours at a time looking at his turnips and shaking his head over 'em. But what for? A man must be a dang fool to go shaking of his head over a lot of turnips. Well, I don't know, rejoined the ancient. His turnips was very good uns as a rule, and fetched top prices in the markets. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the bestseller in America in 1911. Have you heard of this book? Have you heard of Farnall? Is it pronounced Farnall or Farnall? Where does the accent lie? Which syllable? I can't wait to track down the next year's book and share it with you. I'll get right on that. Until next week, it's been another week, and it will be another week, and we'll see what happens. Anyway, I hope you have a good one overall, as much as is possible. Hang in there, champ. Take care of yourselves and each other. I'll see you next week. Bye now.